Hello, and welcome to OneNote 2016. My name is Sean Bugler, and I'm going to be guiding you through some of the cool features available inside Microsoft's digital notebook solution. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we dive too deeply into the application, it'll serve us well to make sure that we're familiar with the interface. For those of you who have worked with OneNote before, I've got good news for you. The interface hasn't changed much, if at all. However, for those of you who have never opened up OneNote before, let's take a look at some of the tools we'll be working around. At the very top of the screen, we have access to these series of tabs. These tabs and these tools down below are known as the ribbon. The ribbon contains all the tools that we'll be using throughout this entire series. Now, each ribbon tab is designed to use a gut word, a word that inherently means something whether we really think about it or not. For example, the word insert. If you were to say to yourself that you would like to insert an image into a notebook, what tab might you go into? My hope is that your instinct was to go to the Insert tab. Here inside the Insert tab, you'll see that we have access to a number of different things that you would, in fact, insert, like space, or tables, simple attachments. There we go, images. We'll be coming back to these tools in just a little bit, but nonetheless, throughout this process, it's important to note that when we're looking for a particular tool, simply asking yourself what it is you're trying to do and trying to fit that into one of the tabs we have available will help you out. Now, inside each tab, we have access to command groups. These command groups contain tools that either do similar things or edit similar content. For example, basic text. These tools all do similar things. They manipulate content. Same thing with tags. When we learn about tags, you'll find that all the tools that we need here have something to do with OneNote tagging. So keep that in mind as we're going throughout this. I may reference things as the tab or the command group. In those instances, knowing this will help you guide your way through this series. Now, there's one tab in particular that does something a little bit different than the rest of the tabs. I'm talking about the File tab, the one found to the farthest on the left. You see, when you click on the File tab, you'll notice it takes you somewhere very different from where the rest of the tabs take you. If you click on the Insert tab, it simply shows you an extra list of tools, Draw, History, and so on. But when you click on the File tab, you do get this different view. This is called the Backstage View. And it's important to understand that the Backstage View is all about making changes about the file. All other tabs, Home, Insert, and otherwise, make changes inside the file. So the File tab is where you're going to go to create a new notebook, open a previously created notebook, share this notebook. Notice that we're able to do things that are about this notebook, not necessarily inside the notebook. Keep that in mind as we're going throughout this here, because it's going to be very useful to know where to go when you need to do something like export a page, section, or the entire notebook to someone who needs to see your notes. It's time to create a new notebook, the one we'll be working in for the duration of this class. You can create a new notebook in two different places. Microsoft has a design theory that says if it's important, there's probably supposed to be more than one way to do it. Fortunately for us, creating a notebook is pretty important and therefore relatively easy to find because there are multiple ways to do it. The first way you might have gotten a glimpse of when we were in the Backstage View. Remember, the Backstage View is hidden behind the File tab. If you click on the File tab, you'll notice we have access to an icon on the left that says New. So I'm going to go ahead and click New. And you'll see when I do, it asks me where I'd like to save this notebook. Do I want to save it to my OneDrive for Business, my personal OneDrive, my SharePoint site, or do I want to save it locally on my computer? Depending on your needs, you'll decide which one makes the most sense for you. But it is important to note that to really take advantage of OneNote and its capabilities across all the platforms it works on, you'll want to do it on either a OneDrive or SharePoint location in order to take advantage of the syncing properties. Now, the other way that we can create a notebook is actually here inside this view. You'll notice that I'm currently inside the Work Notes notebook. But if I click on the drop down here, you'll see I actually have the ability also to add a notebook. Now I can click add a notebook here. I can also open up any other notebooks that I might have already created. Now you may not see this view with the drop down. You may see this view. The view that I was just in was a more compact, a more minimalist view. And I got it by selecting this push pin to the right of the word notebooks. By clicking on that push pin, you'll see it removes the sidebar and tucks all of my notebook options up into this drop-down menu. For those of you that would like to have that sidebar, either because you have a large window or because you have a lot of different notebooks, simply click on the push pin on the right-hand side of the drop-down menu, and you'll see that it adds it as a sidebar. Now, I don't have a lot of screen real estate to work with here, so I'm not going to pin this sidebar. And I'm going to go ahead and create my new notebook by clicking Add Notebook. I'm going to go ahead and save it in my OneDrive for Business. And in particular, I think I'll create a new folder, and I'll call it OneNote 2016. It's here that I'll save my OneNote notes, and I'm going to click Create. And just like that, my notebook's been created. I have the ability to, right out of the box, invite people that I might want to share this notebook with for collaborative notes or other. I'm going to go ahead and say Not Now. And I'm now inside my OneNote Notes workbook. Go ahead and take this opportunity to create your own notebook, and join me after the break. Alright, so at this stage here, you should have your OneNote notebook freshly created and ready to be written in. Although first, maybe we'd like to give it a little bit more structure. Well, how do you create structure inside of a notebook? Well, depending on when you went to grade school, you may have used dividers, section dividers. OneNote is no different. In fact, working within OneNote, one of the best things you can do for yourself is to constantly envision a physical notebook. What is it that makes a physical notebook great? Well, we have the ability to organize those notebooks into sections. Currently, I have New Section 1. New Section 1 doesn't really do much for me, so maybe I'd like to rename it. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click on it and select Rename. We'll go ahead and call this one the Quick Notes section. So that will be where all of my quick notes go, notes that I don't necessarily have a place for yet, or maybe just something to take on the go. Maybe I'd like another section tab. To create a new section tab, find the little plus sign to the right of already created section tabs, and give it a click. Here in this section tab, maybe I'll call this particular section tab my Learnit Notes. So these are going to be my notes regarding my work stuff at my company Learnit. Maybe I'll create one more section, and I'll call it my Personal Notes. So now I've got 3 section tabs: my Quick Notes, my Learnit, and my Personal. Now, of course, it created colors on its own, and I could change those colors if I want to, simply by right-clicking on the tab, and down at the bottom, selecting the section color. Maybe I'd like Quick Notes to be red, and for my Learnit Notes to be blue, and my Personal Notes to be green. Go ahead and take this opportunity to create 3 sections of your own, and join me after the break. Alright, so I've created my section tabs. What now? Well, within each section tab, we have pages. So a section tab doesn't just have to be one page, it can actually be a bunch of pages. So hopefully you're starting to see that there's a lot more structure to OneNote than at first glance. We'll say for quick notes, this first page I'll create is going to be for quick notes in meetings. I created the name for this page by typing in the title field at the top of the page, although you can also right-click on the page on the right-hand side here. So I've got my meetings page. Maybe I'd like a quick notes page for on the go. To create a new page, simply click the Add Page icon on the top of the right-hand bar. And once again, to name it, simply start typing in the top field or right-click on that new page and select Rename. Let's say I want to create some sections for my Learnit tab. Here in my Learnit tab, let's say that I'd like to create this one and make it my executive page. This is going to be for all of my notes regarding Learnit, regarding my executives as well. I'll go ahead and create another page, and we'll say this has something to do with sales. And one more for the instructors. So hopefully you're starting to see here now, every tab can become its own little haven for respective subject matter. Go ahead and take this opportunity to add a couple of pages to a few of your sections, and join me after the break. Okay, so we've got section tabs, and we've got pages. That's gotta be it. There can't possibly be any more structure to this, can there? Well, actually, there is a couple more levels. You see, section tabs are great, but occasionally we get too involved with these section tabs. We start breaking things up into more and more diverse section tabs, and it gets really unwieldy to navigate through all of these different section tabs. For example, let's say I don't work for just Learnit. Let's say I also have my own freelance business. If I create a section tab here, and we'll call this Bugler LLC, Learnit and Bugler LLC are both professional tabs, so they might be tabs that I'd like segmented away from my quick notes and my personal tab. Now, at first glance, it doesn't seem like we have anything that allows us to do that. But if you right-click on the section tab, you'll see that we actually have the ability to create not just a new section, but a new section group. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to select New Section Group, and check it out. It created not a section tab, but a group. I'll go ahead and call this my professional section group. Now my professional section group should entail Learnit and Bugler LLC. To add that into my newly created section group, I'm simply going to click, hold, and drag to the professional section group and release. You'll see now I don't see any other section tabs. This is because I'm in not only my OneNote notebook, but my professional section tab. To get back out, simply select the green back arrow. And I'll go ahead and add Learnit. Now, if you're quick, it won't take you in to professional. So if I click and drag Learnit and release, it simply moves it without bringing me inside. And of course, if I want to shuffle up these other tabs without putting them into section groups, I can. If I'd like to have personal in front of quick notes, I can definitely do that. So there you go. Go ahead and create your own section group and join me after the break. So we've got section tabs, we've got pages, and then to contain these section tabs, we've got section groups, like professional here, which contains my Bugler LLC and Learnit section tabs. Now, if I want to go any further than that, you might wonder, how much further could you possibly go to create structure inside of a notebook? Well, in the event that we create pages that don't necessarily meet the same level as existing pages, but do have some related merits, like for instance in meetings, there are different types of meetings. There are coffee with the boss meetings. There might also be weekly status report, meetings. Now, these types of meetings are just that, types of meetings. So it doesn't really make sense to have meetings as its own section tab on the same level as on the go and these two different sub-styles of meetings. It would make more sense if Coffee with the Boss and Weekly Status Report were somehow grouped together with meetings. Well, it turns out we can do just that. Now, when we were creating section groups, we had to create the tabs first and then create the section group. Well, it's the same thing with pages. We've created the main page, and we've created the subsequent subpages. All we have to do now is right-click on the subpage and check it out. About a quarter of the way from the bottom, we have Make Subpage. So I'm going to go ahead and select Make Subpage. And you'll notice Coffee with the Boss is now indented underneath Meetings. I'll go ahead and do the same thing with Weekly Status Report. And there you go. I now have a subpage underneath Meetings. So Meetings is its own page, but I now have other pages that directly correspond with Meetings. And you'll notice now on the right-hand side, I actually have an upward chevron. So I can actually fold these up. If I don't want to see those bottom two pages, I can simply hide them or reveal them as necessary. So there you go. 4 different structure elements of a OneNote notebook. Section tabs, section groups that contain section tabs, pages, and subpages. Now, it's important to note that there's no right or wrong way to build out a notebook. Do you have to use subpages? No. Do you have to use section groups? No. How you choose to use OneNote is deeply personal, and it's entirely based on how you take notes, how you process information. So give it some thought before you build out your notebook. Ask yourself these questions. So go ahead, take this opportunity to build out your OneNote notebook, and let's join us after the break. So we've got the structure of our notebook. It's time to start filling this notebook with content. I'm in my on-the-go page of my Quick Notes section tab, and I'd like to start typing something because I'm on the go, I'm moving, I need to put what's in my head onto paper now. Well, if this was Microsoft Word, I'd have to go to the very top left portion of this page in order to start typing. And this tends to be where most users start taking their notes too. But that's not very notebook-like, right? Because a notebook, you can just start writing anywhere if it's a piece of paper, right? You could start writing in the top right corner, or in the bottom left, or in the middle. Well, OneNote is no different. As it turns out, you don't have to start in the top left. Simply take your mouse and click where you want to start typing, and you'll notice the cursor immediately jumps to that location. You can start typing anywhere inside a OneNote notebook. So I'm going to go ahead and do it from the middle here. Why not? And I'll say, don't forget, there's a conference call on Monday. You're sharing a phone with David. So just like that, I've gone ahead and I've just thrown text into the middle of a OneNote notebook. It's that easy. Go ahead and take this opportunity, pick somewhere inside your OneNote notebook, and just start typing. And then, just to shake things up even more, click somewhere else and start typing. Maybe something to the effect of, it's your week to bring donuts to the Friday staff meeting. And there you go. So now I've got text in 2 on-the-fly places, simply because I'm on the go, and I've got to get what's in my head onto the page. OneNote does as much as it possibly can to get out of the way. Go ahead and try it for yourself, and join me after the break. Now once you've got text onto the page, you might wonder, well, A lot of good this did me, because even though I was on the go then, I'm not on the go now, and I need to clean up my notes a little bit. So how do I do that? Or can I, for that matter? Well, you can. Now, when it comes to something simple, you might have wondered, at what point does it decide, hey, I've gone too far to the right, I need to go to mine? Well, that really depends on the settings of your particular OneNote notebook. For mine, it tends to be about, well, just that big. But out of the box, it can keep going indefinitely. Now, you may want to resize it after the fact. As you hover over the text, you'll notice that there's a little box that surrounds each text field. This can be adapted based on your needs. So I'm just going to hover over it, and I'm going to find the right border, and I'm going to bring it in a little bit. There you go. That's a little bit more my style. And when it comes to my donuts note over here, I need to bring it closer off to the left-hand side here, closer to notes that I've already taken, so that I know that it even exists. You can't have notes floating off to the right here. To move an entire text field, simply hover over the 4 dots in the gray bar until you get that 4-corner arrow. From there, simply click, hold, and drag wherever you'd like to bring those notes, and release. So now I've got my text in roughly the same place. Now, of course, just like any worksheet, you can also zoom in after the fact. So the text is a little bit bigger now, but maybe I'd like it to be even bigger than just the default text. By selecting the entire text box or by highlighting all the text, you'll see that you get some quick text edit fields. So I can change the font style, size, I can choose from a number of quick styles, maybe it's a title, or maybe this is a type of heading. Or I can change the style of font, maybe it's red or bold. In all these different instances here, you'll notice that it's pretty flexible with what I can and can't do with regards to my text. I'm going to go ahead and resume it back to its default style. But maybe I'd like to bring it up just a couple more points in size. I'll bring it up to 14-point font. And then I'll use the Format Painter to do the same thing to this text here. Oh, almost missed it there. There we go. So formatting text doesn't have to be difficult. Now keep in mind, you could have also selected the box and gone up to the Home tab where we had access to our basic text formatting tools. You'll notice that in fact all the tools that are available up to about here are also available inside the Quick Access field. Remember, Microsoft's design theory, if it's important, there's more than one way to do it. Now let's say that I'd like to merge my notes together. Well, if I click and drag over the notes, you'll see it doesn't do a lot for me. But there's one other thing that pops up when I'm hovering over my text fields. There's this little nib on the left-hand side here. If I hover over it, I get that 4-corner arrow. And if I click and drag, it looks like I'm clicking and dragging from the text box. But watch what happens when I click and drag it to text. Check it out. It actually snapped it right into the text field. Let me show you again. So I'm hovering over my text box, and instead of clicking and dragging from the top here, I'm going to hover over and click and drag from the nib over here on the left-hand side, and drag towards existing text. And there you go. You can indent it, or not, entirely up to you. But it is simply that, a click and drag. I can even reorder it after the fact. So, it's your week to bring donuts to the Friday staff meeting. I need that to be below that conference call note on Monday. So I'm just going to click and drag the nib on that line and drag it down. Or, if I need to break it away, I can do that too. And it makes it its own little text box. So go ahead and take this opportunity. Try it out. Move some text. Format it. Maybe you'd like to give it bullets. Try this out for yourself and get a good comfortable feel for manipulating your notes inside of OneNote. I'll see you after the break. While we're on the topic of quick formatting, let's say that I'm not only taking notes for just day-to-day stuff, but I'm actually taking quick notes for all 5 of my working days. So for example, I might have a section for Monday notes, and another section for Tuesday notes, and so on. Now, these don't really look like very good section headers. Fortunately, I have something called Quick Styles, found inside the Home tab. Quick Styles allow me to say, hey, this is important text, but I don't know how to enumerate that. How do I make this text look important, or look like what it is that I'm trying to get it to look like? So I'd like to make a change to all these days of the week to indicate that these are section headers, not just text. So by highlighting all of them, I'm going to go to my Styles section, and you'll see that I have the ability to make it a heading, or heading 1, all the way through heading 6. Maybe it's a title, or a citation or quotation. In any instance, I can simply click and see, that does look a little bit more like what it was that I was trying to represent. Now I can go ahead and adjust my text. So in the instance of, don't forget, there's a conference call on Monday. Those are notes that have something to do with Monday. So I'm going to hover over that nib, break it out, and bring it into the Monday section. I can adjust the width of the column as necessary. Maybe I'll bring the rest of this out a little bit here. And there you go. Likewise with my Friday notes. I'll bring that nib over to Friday, close it in a little bit, and now I've got something that's a lot easier for me to navigate. And I can look and see at the very top of every section, yes, this is definitely Monday notes, or Tuesday notes, or Friday notes. It just got that much easier to navigate, and it's all because I know what headers I'm looking at. Maybe I'd like something a little bit more obvious with regards to my title. Maybe these are notes with regards to not just any particular Monday through Friday, but this Monday and Friday. In particular, week ending 3/26. I'll give that a title heading. And there you go. So I can use these headers and this styling and simple text manipulation in order to make my notes pop. This is something that you really can't do with paper notes unless you're walking around with multicolored pens and an eraser to erase everything and make it bigger later. We simply don't have near this kind of flexibility inside a real-world notebook. But in a digital notebook, the flexibility and the options are limitless. Go ahead and try it out for yourself. Use some of the text styles, and maybe try out some section building, just like we did here. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back. So we've started to get more comfortable with inserting content into our OneNote pages. Keep in mind that pages are very different from our sections up here at the top. But now that we've got our text in place and even got it looking pretty good using those quick styles we talked about, it's time to start talking about some of the other content that can exist inside of a OneNote notebook. In particular, maybe I'd like to introduce a little bit of visual structure. You see, I can't really segment the difference between Monday and Tuesday. Well, I can, if I draw a little box around it. Wouldn't it be nice if I could do that in actual OneNote instead of just using this fancy presentation software? Well, that does exist. If you jump inside the tab that you might look in if you were going to draw something, see where I might be going with this? Go ahead and jump into the Draw tab, and you'll see we actually have the ability to draw simple shapes inside of OneNote. Now, before we get too far into shapes, I would like to let you guys know ahead of time, there are ways of establishing the line color and thickness of these shapes, but we'll be focusing on that after the fact, and I'll explain why in just a moment. So first, go ahead and locate the Shapes command group. It's going to be about the middle portion of the Draw tab. Now at first glance, it looks like we only have access to just a handful of shapes here. And that is the case, but it's important to know what kind of options we have beyond what we see here. If you look to the bottom right in the Shapes command group, you'll notice there's a little drop-down arrow. Give it a click, and you'll see that although we don't have any additional shapes to choose from, we do have a deeper understanding now of what kinds of shapes they are, whether it's graph-based shapes, basic shapes, or simple lines. Now, as we're going throughout this here, you may need to know whether or not your shape is snapping to the invisible grid. You'll see what that feels like in just a little bit. But we also have the ability to lock drawing mode, indicating that this will remain in drawing mode until you explicitly toggle out of it. Otherwise, when you jump into drawing mode to insert a shape or line, it will immediately jump back to type mode. So an important distinction there, and one that you may find frustrating if you weren't prepared to jump right back into type mode. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and find a simple square. I'm going to use the rectangle basic shape and give it a click. Now when you give it a click, you might expect a shape to just appear, but that's not entirely the case. In fact, it feels a little anticlimactic. But you will notice that my cursor is now a crosshair. So I'm going to take my crosshair to where I would like this shape to go. And in this case, I'd like my shape to go around Monday, to kind of coordinate it off a little bit. So I'm going to take my crosshairs up to the top left here. I'm going to click and hold and drag until I've gotten my shape to about the spot that I'd like it to go. And I'm going to release. And just like that, I've drawn a simple rectangle. In this case here, you can see that my rectangle defaulted to a green line, and it's slightly thicker than you might expect it to be. Now, your first shape may not be green, and it may not be this thick, but don't worry, we can change that. To change the settings of the line of a simple shape, simply click on the actual border. You'll notice that when you click on the border of the shape, you have the ability to assign it an Outlook task if you have Outlook installed. You have the ability to tag it, both things that we'll be talking about a little bit later. But here we also have access to our pen properties. If I click on pen properties, you'll see that I have the ability to distinguish between pen and highlighter lines. You can see if I cycle between the two, highlighter is traditionally used as more of a blocky indicator. We usually use it as we actually would a highlighter in the real world to isolate text. Now if I switch over to pen, you'll see I have the ability to distinguish between several different thicknesses of lines. And in fact, if you hover over them, it actually has specific measurements. In this case, I've always been fond of the 2mm. So I'm going to give that a click, and maybe I'd like to use this dark maroon. I'm going to go ahead and give that a click. And I'm going to select OK. And just like that, the line shape fixed itself based on my preferences. Now, why would we change the colors and thickness after the fact instead of changing it and then drawing the shape? Well, a good reason is generally because we like to have the shape in place first. The line thickness can and does impact the shape that we draw. So if we draw the shape and change the thickness after the fact, we can adjust. Meanwhile, if we adjust the color and thickness before we draw the shape, we may not have any idea how it will actually impact what we draw. So keep that in mind as you're building out your simple shapes. I'm going to go ahead and draw one more here, and then you guys will be able to jump ahead and fill in the rest. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and click and drag from the top left corner. And this time, while I'm drawing this shape, you might notice that as I'm going down, the line is expanding, but it's not expanding very smoothly. They're very blocky motions. Well, this is what we were talking about when it said snap to grid. There's an invisible grid that's taking place in the background of this OneNote page, allowing me to draw shapes that are more uniform in length and width. Now, if you don't want the snap to grid, if you'd like to be able to be a little bit more freeform with your shapes, simply turn off snap to grid. Now, when you draw your shapes, you'll notice that things are a lot more freeform. So keep that in mind that we do have that flexibility. Now I'm going to keep my snap to grid on because I'm a little bit more comfortable with that. However, you can decide for yourself whether or not that's something that you would like to have available for you. Go ahead and pause the video, and if you'd like, draw the remaining shapes for Monday through Friday, and I'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Well, there you go. We've now introduced structure into this notebook by simply drawing boxes. Just like we would in the real world. If we had a notebook and we needed to establish segmentation or separate content, we would just draw boxes with our pen or pencil. With that having been said, what if I don't want to limit myself to what I would do in the real world? I mean, after all, this is a computer. This is OneNote. I should be able to do things here that I wouldn't necessarily be able to do with a regular notebook and pen and pencil. For this example, let's jump into the weekly status report subpage we've created. Now, what could I possibly have to contain text that expands and contracts flexibly while still maintaining structure? Well, what about tables? Tables exist inside of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So why not OneNote? Well, that's exactly it. We can actually use tables to accomplish our goals here. So once again, I'd like to enumerate Monday through Friday so that when my weekly status report does come up, I'm able to look at all of my days of the week and enumerate exactly what happened at the end of every week. Now, there's a couple of different ways to insert a table inside of OneNote. The first way, naturally, starts from the Insert tab. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the Insert tab, and sure enough, there's my table dropdown. Now, if I select the table dropdown, this may be a familiar view to those of you who have used Excel or Word previously. I have the ability to say I'd like a 1x1 table, or 5x1. Maybe I'd like 5 columns and 3 rows. So all of that's pretty straightforward, although of course the same limitations in other applications apply here as well. I'm limited to a maximum of 10x8 using this grid. However, if you'd like more, you can select Insert Table. And you'll see that you have the ability to specifically say exactly how many rows and columns you'd like to insert. So let's say that I'd like to go ahead and insert, there are 5 days in the week, and number of rows. Let's say I'd like to have 3 rows. And you know what? Maybe I'd like to label my column and row fields. So I'm going to give it 6 column fields. And I'm going to click OK. So there it is. There's my table. Pretty easy. Now you'll notice that I had to think about building this table because I may not necessarily be sure of exactly what I want just yet. I simply wanted structure. Now of course I could go through this and type out Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Oop. Shouldn't have put Sunday in there. There we go. Much better. And I could go ahead and say that this section is days of the week. And you'll notice that my table auto-expands just like text did because I haven't established any borders yet with this grouping. I could make it a little bit bigger if I'd like. And likewise make the table a little bit bigger with every single row column here. Now you'll notice that as I resize columns, resizing another one doesn't impact the others. So that's a really important distinction to make, is that once you've established borders of any one particular column, those will not change unless you explicitly change them. Now there are a couple of exceptions to that, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But for now, if you're going to establish columns, at least column widths anyways, make sure you know exactly how big or small you want them to be. They will not auto-expand after you adjust this. So let's say this next section is going to be issues and additional notes. So there you go. I've got my structure. If I'd like to zoom in a little bit, I can definitely do that. Of course, if you wanted to, you could have made things a little bit bigger font-wise, but zooming in works for me. So there's my structure there. Now, of course, again, this is me building a table already having some predetermined idea of what I want my table to look like. We don't always have that luxury. So let's say that I'd like to build this exact same style of table, but I'd like to do it a little bit more ad hoc, a little bit more on the fly. So I'm going to start by just typing days of the week here. Now keep in mind, this isn't a table. This is just a regular text field. But watch what happens when I press the Tab key. What just happened there? You'll see the Tab key actually created a table. Let me go ahead and show you that one more time. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and clear this out here, and I'm going to start typing. I'll type days of the week. Again, no table. But watch what happens when I press the Tab key. Voila! It's now a table, just like that. And as I press the Tab key, it instantly adds new columns. There you go. Now if I'd like to go down to create a new row, I'll press the Enter key. And there it is. So I can type out issues. Now you'll notice what happens here when I press the Enter key. Because I'm not at the end of a row, the Enter key is actually just dropping me down in the same row. In order to create a new row, I actually have to be in the very last cell of the last row. Now I'll press the Enter key, and you'll see it creates that third row. So there you go. 3 separate ways for us to increase and decrease the size of our tables, create tables. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we can do with this here, but it all starts with knowing that it's even possible. So go ahead and take this opportunity to build out your table and join me after the break. Welcome back. A couple of additional notes about working with tables. When a table is created, I'll go ahead and clear this out here. When a table's been created, you'll see that we gain access to the Table Tools Layout tab. This is a tab that only exists when we're in an environment that requires these particular tools. If I go inside the Table Tools Layout tab, you'll see that I have the ability to select the entire table, select the entire column I'm already in, or rows for that matter. Now, why would I want to select columns or rows? Well, I'm going to go ahead and select the top row here, days of the week. This is my header row. And I'm going to go ahead and say I'd like to select those rows. Now that I've done that, let's take a look at the format section here. You'll see that I have the ability to hide borders. Let's say I don't want to see the table at all. Or if I'd like to focus more specifically on this row, I can say I'd like to have a particular shading in that row. I'll give it a little bit of an orange tint here. And there you go. Likewise, let me say I'd like to do the exact same thing to additional notes. I'm going to select that row. This time, because I've already selected orange, I can already just use the paint can up top. And why not? I'll give issues a color as well. Give this one a light shade of, let's say, blue. So being able to select rows and columns allows us to impact the visual aspects of this table as well. Just because notes are about things you may not necessarily want to focus on, doesn't mean they can't look good. Now, I've clicked away from the table, and you'll notice that outside the table, I don't have access to my Table Tools Layout tab. To get access to those tools, simply place your cursor back inside the table. Inside the table, you can impact alignment of text. So if I'd like to, I can select the entire row, center all the text inside. If there were any additional content within here, I could sort. Here's something interesting. You see, OneNote doesn't do very well with regards to formulation inside of tables, not unlike Excel. So instead of limiting yourself to just what OneNote is capable of, instead, why don't you take advantage of the things that really make Excel great? So let's say I did want to convert this to an Excel spreadsheet. I'll simply place my cursor over the Convert to Excel spreadsheet, give it a click, and bada bing, bada boom, you'll see that it actually injected an Excel spreadsheet. Not bad. So now I can double click inside of this Excel spreadsheet, and you'll see that I now have access to the Edit button. Or you can right click and select Edit from the top of the right click menu. Either way, it will actually jump you into Excel here. And you can see here, this isn't just Excel Lite. This is actually full-blown Excel. Pretty cool. I'll go ahead and close out of this here. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that there. Go ahead and try that out for yourself. See how you feel. In fact, take that opportunity, try and do something that maybe only Excel can do. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. So now we've talked about creating from scratch content to inject into OneNote. But this time, let's talk about existing content. Now, I've muddied up my quick notes section enough, I think, for now, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit and move into a different spot of my notebook. I'm going to jump into my professional section group. Now remember, the professional section group isn't just a section, it's actually a collection of sections. By clicking inside, you'll see I'm now still inside the OneNote Notes notebook. But I'm also now within the professional section group, and it's here that you'll see my two separate professional sections, Bugler LLC and Learnit. Now, of course, within Learnit, you'll see, if you remember from the beginning, we injected an instructors page, a sales page, and an executive page. It's here inside these three pages that I'd like to inject some existing file content that I have on hand. Now, with everything that we've discussed here, one of the things that hopefully you've taken away from now is that when we're trying to insert something, we're probably going to be inside the Insert tab. Here inside the Insert tab, in particular, I'd like to focus on the Files command group here, where I can work with file printouts, file attachments, or, as we'll see in just a moment, spreadsheets. For now, let's focus on the first one, file printout. Now the file printout, if you hover over it, you'll see that it adds a printout to the file of this page. One of the interesting things that comes along with that is that OneNote is actually capable of searching text that's inside these OneNote printouts. So let's take a look and see how that looks. I'm going to click on File Printout, and you'll see that it'll ask me to choose the document I'd like to insert. In this instance, I've got a project I've been working on that I'd like to share with the other instructors soon. For now, I'm going to go into my Active Projects file and find the Intro to Devices running Windows 10. And I'll click Insert. It'll take just a moment, but what it's doing now is it's actually printing that file into OneNote. When it's done, you'll see that I'll have every single page inside of my Microsoft Word document injected into OneNote. And there it is. So as I scroll down here, you'll see this is every single page inside of my project. Pretty cool. However, this might take up a little bit more room than you anticipated. So that brings us to our second file attachment style. Let me go ahead and undo here. And this time, let's take a look at file attachment. By clicking on it, once again, it gives me the Insert File window view. I'll select Intro to Devices running Windows 10, and I'll select Insert. Interestingly, you'll notice that this window too includes the ability to print out the file, keeping in mind that this means the file will be searchable inside of OneNote. It also gives me the ability to attach the file. I'm going to go ahead and try that out. You'll see that it now gives me a simple shortcut icon to the file on my computer. So there's a big distinction between getting a file printout and just simply attaching the file into OneNote. While this one is more space conscious, it's not searchable, unfortunately. Now that we've talked a little bit about Word documents, let's talk about the third style of file attachment, spreadsheets. Now, for this one here, I've got an Excel spreadsheet with some sales data that's probably not going to go on the instructors page. So I'm going to jump over to my sales page here. Here inside the sales page, I'm going to click on my Insert Spreadsheet tool. You'll see I have the ability to insert new Excel spreadsheets or an existing Excel spreadsheet. It's important to note that that new Excel spreadsheet button is no different than the one found underneath the table dropdown. You could also create a table from scratch, as we saw, and convert that to an Excel spreadsheet later. In this instance, however, we have an existing Excel spreadsheet we'd like to inject. So I'll give that tool a click. I'm going to go ahead and find that file, in this case here, Global Wine Sales, and I'm going to click Insert. This time, instead of getting just Insert or Attach, I also have a more specific style. Now let me show you Insert Spreadsheet first. You'll see that it does in fact insert the spreadsheet, but it also inserts a lot more than we intended, including all these blank cells. Even in the instance of my pivot table and chart, it includes some blank cells that may not necessarily be wanted. So let's take a look at that third option that we saw. I'm going to undo. And once again, I'm going to click Existing Excel Spreadsheet. Global Wine Sales. However, instead of attaching a file, which would just give me the shortcut icon, or inserting a spreadsheet, which gave me too much, I'm going to select Insert a Chart or Table. You see, if content has been made a table inside of Excel, you can actually specify that you wouldn't necessarily want to display everything, or even an entire page. Instead, what you can do is say, I would like to insert just the table, or just the chart. I'll click OK. And there you go. Notice that there are no blank cells. It only inserted exactly what I wanted. So you can see that there is a modicum more control when it comes to dealing with Excel files inside of OneNote. Go ahead and pause the video and take this opportunity to embed external content from your computer into OneNote. We'll see you after the break. Now, beyond the realm of file external content, there's also other styles of external content, and many of them are image-based. Which brings us to our next section in the command groups here. We have the ability to inject screen clips, pictures from our computer, or online files. Let's take a look at what some of these options mean for us. Now, currently, in my web browser here, I'm going to go ahead and open up Learnit.com. What I'd like to do is insert a screenshot of the front page because we're working on it, and the executive team would like some notes. Here inside of OneNote, if I select screen clipping, interestingly enough, it actually does this. It grays out the entire screen, and you'll notice that my cursor is transitioned into a little crosshair. Now, I could copy the entire screen. However, because I have the crosshairs here, I can be more specific. So let's say I'd like to select just this portion of the page. So I've highlighted it, and you'll notice that any content highlighted with the crosshairs actually gets recolored instead of being that opaque gray. I release, and check it out. It's actually injected that specific clipping directly into the page that I was currently on. In this case, the executive page. If I scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that it actually tells me when it was taken. This can be of particular use when it comes to highlighting online content that changes and may be beyond our control. Now, while we have the ability to take screen clips of this kind of stuff, we also have the ability to inject pictures. Now, it's important to note the two distinctions between imagery. Pictures on the left, with the little monitor icon in the bottom right, only allows you to insert content that's already stored on your computer. So if I go to Pictures here, for example, and I go to my Pictures library, you'll see that I've only got a couple of scans here that I may not necessarily want to insert because it's not really clip art or anything that I might have been looking for. However, we now have access to online pictures. Clicking on it gives us this Insert Content window. What this allows us to do is search through a couple of different sources here. You'll see that I have the ability to insert from SharePoint if I'm connected to a SharePoint site. Many of you may not know, but Microsoft owns Bing, which allows us to use the Bing image search. We can search from our OneDrive or Facebook and Flickr. In this case, I'm going to use Bing image search. So in this example, maybe I'd like to inject a picture of a bridge. I'll go ahead and search bridge. And you'll see that it does include some clip art style images. However, it's important to note that we have the full access of the web at our disposal. The only thing stopping us from seeing everything is this box in the top right. Notice it says CC only, standing for Creative Commons, which indicates the type of license that's enabled on these images. Creative Commons means that I can use this image freely without licensing. However, it can't be for profit on an external source. If you're using it internally, that's fine. However, of course, if you're not worried about that, you can always click the drop-down arrow and select All Images, which will give you maybe more of what you were expecting to see. In this instance, here's home, for me, San Francisco. I'll go ahead and select that Golden Gate Bridge and click Insert. And just like that, the image is inserted. Now, it's really important to note that while other applications like Word and Excel and even PowerPoint have some limited photo editing tools, OneNote does not. Yes, OneNote does not have any photo editing tools. So it's really important to keep in mind that if you need to do any alterations to these photos before you insert them, you're going to have to do it outside of OneNote. Now, while we've been talking about this image here, something else has been happening up here with this screenshot. You see, when we inserted this screenshot, you might be aware that all of this text is just part of the image. And that could be a problem if I was actually trying to reference technical training or professional development. Or let's say that I was simply trying to forward on some of the verbiage in order to provide notes on it later. So this screenshot might feel a little counterproductive, but while we've been talking about injecting bridges into this OneNote notebook, what's been happening is OneNote has actually been scanning this screenshot using something called OCR, Optical Character Recognition. What this means is that it's actually able to take an image, screenshot or otherwise, and actually render it as text. So check this out. I'm going to right-click on this, and you'll see that there's actually an option called Copy Text from Picture. So I'll go ahead and copy that, and I'll scroll down a little bit. Sorry, Bridge, you're a little bit in the way. I'm just going to bring you down to the side here. And down below, I'm going to paste that text. And there it is. You can see here it took all the text that was available and it's actually injected into this text box. Now, of course, it's not pretty, but nonetheless, the ability to turn a photo into text is pretty cool. While copying and pasting the text from an image is cool and potentially useful, there's another side to this coin as well. Because we're actually able to read the text in this image, that also makes this image searchable. You'll notice that as I type HO of home, home actually highlights. Likewise, if I were to type technical, you'll see that technical starts to highlight. Likewise, if I search the word Microsoft, everything starts to highlight. This is pretty cool. It's important to note that OCR isn't perfect, meaning that it may not catch the entire word. However, if you start to spell it, you'll notice where it bubbles up. We'll talk a little bit more about search in just a bit. As I type end user, you can see, for example, it caught that word. Go ahead and pause the video and take this opportunity to insert a screenshot of your own, or an image from either online or on your computer. Make sure it's got a little bit of text so you can see that OCR in action. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. I've re-landscaped a little bit here just to get my images to fit a little bit better. For our next topic, let's say that I've got these images here, but it does me no good to have just the images if I'm talking about something that's happening outside of OneNote. In this example, I'm talking about the Learnit website at www.learnit.com. But if I'm talking about it and I want people to go look at the actual page, it seems a little crazy that I would make them have to go and find their own web browser, go and hopefully know the URL to Learnit first of all, and then manually type it in themselves. Wouldn't it make more sense for me to give them the link? So I'm going to do exactly that. Here, off to the right of Learnit, the screenshot, I'm just going to type in Learnit homepage. Likewise, let's say that I'd like this to link to the San Francisco Tourism Board. So I'll go ahead and type in San Francisco Tourism homepage. In both instances, I've typed text, but of course that text doesn't mean anything just yet. It simply means that I've typed the word Learnit homepage. So what do I do with it now? Why not create a hyperlink? Hyperlinks mean links that reach outside of the program that you're currently in. In this case, I'd like to link this sentence, this phrase, Learnit homepage, to the actual Learnit page. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to click and select the content. And you'll notice up at the top here in the Insert tab, I have something called the Link But tool. I'm going to go ahead and give that a click. And you'll see it gives me two options. The ability to dictate what the text that actually is displayed says, and the ability to say what address I want to send it to. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and send it to www.learnit.com. And I'll click OK. Just like that, I've now made this a clickable URL. If I hover over it and click, you'll notice it takes me directly to www.learnit.com. Likewise, I could take this and link to the San Francisco Tourism homepage, once again by highlighting the content, selecting link, although I would like to point out you can also right-click and select link from here as well. This time, I'm going to click on Browse the Web. It opens up Internet Explorer here, and maybe I don't know the San Francisco Tourism Board website, so I'm going to go ahead and type it in. In this case, I'll type San Francisco Tourism. And there it is, sanfrancisco.travel. Once I've found the URL that I'd like to use, all I have to do is close out the window. I'll go ahead and type it in now. www.sanfrancisco.travel. Or I could create a new page if I didn't want it to go to the actual website. We'll talk more about creating pages in just a little bit. But for now, I want to point it outside to the web. And I'll click OK. So there you go. 2 hyperlinks. Now, is that the end of it? It could be. For now, go ahead and pause the video. Take this opportunity to create 2 hyperlinks to external content somewhere outside of OneNote. And I'll join you after the break. Welcome back. So now the second side of things. Did I have to create text at all? Why couldn't the image be the hyperlinkable content? Well, the answer is it didn't have to be. I didn't have to create text. In fact, I could have just made this screenshot link to the actual site I took a screenshot from. So in this instance, I'm going to click on the image, and just like last time, I'm going to click link. And I'll go ahead and type in http www.learnit.com. And just like that, the screenshot is now also a hyperlink. Although it is important to note that because this is also an object, it requires a control key press and click to go there. So I have to press and hold the control key first and then click the image in order to get my Learnit.com webpage. So it's an important distinction there, but nonetheless one that can be really beneficial to you. Go ahead and pause the video and make an image a hyperlink as well. We'll see you after the break. Starting to come together. These notes can be more than just notes. They can also be references to external content. We're starting to see that more and more. The files command group allows us to pull files from outwards and bring them in. Likewise with images. Now, let's take it one step further. Or better yet, one step back. Linking outside of OneNote is great, But because OneNote may end up becoming my one-stop shop with regards to my digital notes, why can't I hyperlink within? In fact, I may need to because my notebook may be huge, cumbersome, tedious. Well, I can. These are called Wiki Links. For those of you who aren't familiar, Wiki, or Wiki more specifically, is Hawaiian. It means quick. For those of you who may be familiar, the most popular wiki is Wikipedia, and it simply means the ability to create new content quickly and link to it. So in this instance here, I'd like to create a wiki link to my sales and instructor pages. To create a wiki link, there's one of two ways of doing it. The first way is to start with two open brackets. So in this case here, I'm going to use open bracket, and I'd like to link, in this case, to my sales page. There's nothing fancy I have to do here. I just simply have to know the name of the page. So I'm going to type sales, and then I'm going to close out the double brackets, bracket. You'll notice that when I close it out, it instantly becomes hyperlinked. So watch what happens when I click on it. Boom! It took me to my sales page. Wiki, quick. Let's say I'd like to go another step further. I'd like to also create a wiki link to my instructors page. I'm going to press the tab key here. For those of you who don't remember the tab key creates a table when you're typing. So now I'm creating kind of a navigation bar up top. This time I'm just going to type the word instructors. I'll select it, and I'm going to click the link, to which you might say, Sean, isn't that the hyperlink button? And the answer is, it was, but it can also allow us to pick a location inside OneNote, whether that's Enter Notebook, in other sections in our same notebook, or, in this instance, Pages inside the section we're already in. So I'm going to select Instructors, and click OK. Once again, to test it out, I'll hover over Instructors, give it a click, and there I am in the Instructors page. Now things are getting a little bit more involved here. Maybe, because I have so many varying different styles of pages, maybe I should have a home page from which to point people to the particular page they're looking for. So I'm going to create a home page. Now, you may think that that requires creating a new page first, but in fact, wiki links are so fast that even if I create a wiki link to a page that doesn't exist yet, notice I created my double brackets, typed home, and closed it out. Now I have dashes instead of a solid line. So I'm going to click on home and check it out. Rewind the video if you have to. This page wasn't here just a moment ago. You see, wiki pages can actually create new pages out of thin air. If there's a need, it'll create it. Go ahead and bring home up to the top here. So there you go. How cool is that? And of course, now I can resize the table as I need to. Maybe I'd like to select the entire row and center it. Does this all sound familiar to you guys? Hopefully this is review. So there you go. Go ahead and take this opportunity to create your own wiki links. I'm going to go ahead and copy this wiki link and I'm going to paste it on other pages as well. Whoop. Make sure to place your cursor where it is that you would like to paste that content. Now I have a navigable top bar. Oh, I should probably put it on the home page too, shouldn't I? And in fact, my home page, instead of having the home link, I'm going to go ahead and give it the executive wiki link. Much better. So now, no matter which link I click on, it'll always take me to a page within my notebook that I've already created, and it will provide me with the hyperlinks to get around, or the Wiki Links in this case. Go ahead and pause the video and take this opportunity to build out your Wiki Link navbar. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back to your super cool OneNote notebook. I hope you're starting to see that it's more than just a place to put your notes. OneNote is all about making it easier for you to organize. And sometimes that means that it does things that are really intuitive, but not obvious. Now, for this next part here, I'd like to go back to my quick notes. This is a quick little aside, and it's a fun little aside. Here inside my quick notes, I'm going to jump into I'm going to clear this out. To delete, simply click on the border. You'll notice that on the outside of any containment box, there's 4 dots. If you click on those 4 dots, you can just tap the delete key. So let's say that I'd like to create some notes, just like I would in the real world. What might be a really good example of some real world notes? Well, a lot of times I'm trying to do some quick math. So maybe I'd like to do something simple like, I worked 8 hours today. I worked 7 hours the day before. I worked 10 hours the day before that, 9 the day before that, and 6 the day before that. Now, I could pull out my phone and calculate all that, but with OneNote, I can just type the equal sign and press the enter key. And look what just popped out. Turns out that's exactly 40 hours. You might be curious what the square root of 52 is. I'll hit equals. And there you go. So the square root of 52 is 7.211111. Does anyone happen to know what 4 to the 60th power is? I don't. But I do now. It's big. So OneNote can actually do some of this quick back-of-the-envelope math that we tend to do ourselves, all here inside, simply by typing it the same way we would write it. Now, it's important to note that it follows the same order of operations that you guys may have remembered from algebra class years and years ago. What do I mean? PEMDAS. In this case here, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and then subtraction. You may occasionally see parentheses subbed out for brackets, but nonetheless, the concept is the same. So if you're trying to build out formulas that are a little bit more complex than 1 plus 1, you're going to need to keep in mind the order of operations. For example, 2 times 6, or 2 plus 6, in parentheses or brackets, however you prefer, multiplied by 2. Now, of course, if this was simply knowing that 2 plus 6 is 8, 8 times 2, well, the multiplication would come first. But because this is in parentheses here, 2 plus 6 will actually take place because it's inside the brackets. Even though it's addition, and that takes place after multiplication. So I'll go ahead and type equals here, and you'll see that it gives us 16. Meanwhile, if I were to type 2 plus 6 times 2, we get a very different answer. So keep in mind that order of operations does matter. And this isn't a math class, but it will come in handy to know that there is order to this chaos. Go ahead and try out some simple math equations here inside of OneNote, and join us after the break. Keep in mind that Excel is still the preferred method for more complex functions and formulas. This is simply for the quick and dirty. Welcome back. Hopefully you're having some fun with this, knowing that there's so much potential with OneNote. Now, surely by now, someone has asked themselves why I haven't mentioned anything about saving. Well, this is a great opportunity to talk about something that OneNote does automatically. See, it turns out we don't have to save our OneNote notebooks. Every single time you insert a single character into OneNote, it starts saving. I'll give you an example here. I'm going to click over here, and I'm just going to type hello. And I'm going to click away. There's no save. What actually takes place, and you'll see it happen every now and again, is, well, you might have just missed it. Rewind your video back like 5 seconds and watch this spot right here. There's a little green dot that'll appear in the notebook. This indicates that it's syncing. So no matter what, you don't have to worry about saving your notebook. Can you imagine the application crashing and you lose all of your notes? Well, Microsoft can't imagine that because they built an application that can't not save. If I go to the File tab, you'll see that there is no save. There's not even a save as. So that's something that can really come in handy when we're dealing with our OneNote notebooks. While we're on the subject of saving, let's talk about sharing. Sharing OneNote notebooks doesn't have to be difficult, and it doesn't even have to leave the actual OneNote application. With OneNote 2016, sharing between users has gotten incredibly easy, and it all starts from the File tab. Join me inside the Backstage View, and you'll see here in the Info tab all of the different notebooks that you may currently have active. In this case, you can see I have my notebook, my work notes, and my OneNote notes, the notebook that we've been using throughout this entire class. In all three instances, I have the ability to invite people to this notebook. Let's say that I'd like to do exactly that. I'm going to click Invite People to this notebook. Because I've shared this with my OneDrive, I've stored this OneNote notebook online through my OneDrive for Business, I actually have direct integration with my Active Directory. So I can actually type in any individual's names that I'd like, including my CEO, Damon Lemby. Let's say I'd like to share this notebook with Damon Lemby. As I type his name pops up, and I can click on it. Or, let's say it's somebody outside the organization. Let's say I'd like to share it with an old friend of mine, Ben Folds, at benfoldsmusic.com. Now, because Ben Folds is outside of my organization, it's not going to find him in the Active Directory. However, I can still type in email addresses, segmented, of course, by a semicolon. Down below, I can include a personal message. Hey, let me know what you think of my notes. I can also go so far as to require that Ben Folds sign in before accessing the document. This can be important because it allows me to make sure that only Ben Folds, using his benfolds at benfoldsmusic.com email, can access the file. I can also go so far as to say, can Ben edit it? Or is this just a view only type of deal? In all these different instances, the nuance is entirely based on your needs and your needs alone. Now let's say that I don't want the user to be able to sign in, or I don't need the user to sign in. I trust that they're the only ones that are going to have this URL. I can uncheck that. And what that does is it simply sends them a link. Now it's important to note that anybody can click on that link because there's no sign-in required. This still sends an email, however. Now if you don't want to send the email, but you do want the link, you can select Get a Sharing Link and create a link that will either let anyone with the link view. If I click Create a Link, there it is. Likewise, with Edit, I can click to create an edit link, meaning that anybody with this link has the ability to edit my OneNote notebook. Let's say that I have an Outlook meeting scheduled. If there's any Outlook meeting scheduled, I can actually say I'd like to share this with the upcoming meeting. If I click on Share with Meeting, you'll see that I'm currently not joined to any online meetings. And of course, it's important to note that that is scheduled through Outlook. So if I was in any sort of, oh, there it is, my OneNote emails. In the event that I was connected to an Outlook email meeting, I would be able to share the notes with that meeting. This is also directly integrated with Skype for Business, or Link. Lastly, I have the ability to move the notebook somewhere that is other than where it currently is. This can be beneficial if I have a shared drive. Now, because I've already shared this notebook with other individuals, in this case by creating the links, I can't move my notebook. But if I disable the link, give it a few minutes and I'll be able to move this notebook. Now, there's one more way to share a notebook, but it's less automatic and it's more permanent. It's the Export tab. There's a big difference between share and export. Sharing allows people to access the same file that I'm currently accessing. Export, on the other hand, while it does give them an exact copy of what I'm working with, it is not the same copy that I'm working with. With that having been said, you have the ability to export notes as pages, as part of their entire section, or as part of their entire notebook. And there would be many reasons why you might do any one of these. Although you'll notice specifically that as you go down the list, your options in terms of file types are limited when you get to Notebook. Notebooks can only be shared as a OneNote file or as a PDF XPS file format. Meanwhile, pages and sections can be exported as Word documents or web pages for that matter. Go ahead and pause the video and take this opportunity to explore the share and export options available to you in OneNote 2016. Go ahead and try that out, and I'll see you after the break. Welcome back. So now we've talked about a lot of really cool stuff. One of the things that I like to talk about right after I talk about sharing and exporting is protecting stuff that you may not necessarily want to share. Let's say, for example, in this entire notebook, we want to share access to pretty much everything, with one exception, the personal section. Now, granted, the personal section doesn't have anything in it yet for us. However, when it does, it's personal. It may not necessarily be something that I want external users to have access to. In those instances, I can protect my personal section tab by right-clicking on it. When you right-click on a section tab, you'll see there's an option to password protect this section. So if I select password protect this section, on the right-hand side, I'll get this little pop-out. Currently, it isn't password protected. However, if I set a password, in this case, the super secret 1234, and click OK, once I've done that and I select lock all, this is what users will see in the event that they don't have the password. There's a couple of tips on the bottom right here. Now, it's important to note that you can't search password-protected sections. This is a really clever workaround, except that you can't do it. Likewise, older versions of OneNote, like in OneNote 2007, audio and video recordings in particular aren't protected. However, because we're in the 2016 version, provided you're not accessing an older style of OneNote notebook, audio and video is protected. Now I'm going to go ahead and say that I like to unlock it. To unlock a OneNote notebook, simply click anywhere inside of it. Now before I unlock it, I'd like to show you that Quick Notes is still readable. Everything is still readable, except for my Personal tab. Once again, click here or press Enter to unlock. Type in your password, and there you go. If you don't want it to be password protected, simply select Remove Password. Please don't forget your password, because it's really embarrassing to get locked out of your own OneNote notebook. Go ahead and try out password protection for yourself, and I'll see you after the break. It's time to start really building out our OneNote notebook. In particular, I'm going to do this inside of my Personal section. Now my Personal section, this is far beyond work or quick notes or anything to that effect. This is for me, whether it's to organize my life or otherwise. So I'd like to put a little bit more care into this. And that may mean prettying up the background a little bit to start. To change the background of a page, you may remember that I have the ability to go to the Page View tab to change the page color, or to implement rule lines. However, in all these different instances, it still involves me making decisions. Instead of making decisions, maybe I'd like to draw from pre-existing stylistically designed templates. Join me inside the Insert tab, and you might notice that there's an actual section called Page Templates. Go ahead and find Page Templates, give it a click, and regardless of what you see in the drop-down above, find Page Templates. It may be the only option available. Nonetheless, give Page Templates a click. This sidebar will open up, and this sidebar actually has a bunch of pre-built OneNote notebook templates. You can see here if I click on Academic, there are lecture note styles. If I click on Simple Lecture Notes, you'll see, sure enough, this is a template specifically designed for lecture notes. There's even one specifically for math and science, or history. Maybe I don't want something academic. Maybe I'd like to use a blank template. Blank templates use pre-built sizes or backgrounds. They tend to be pretty generic, and they can be built yourself using the View tab. However, if you don't like using the View tab and you'd like to be able to just choose your option from the blank command group, you can. Business, of course, we have the ability to break out project overviews if you're looking for something a bit more professional. And you'll notice that these templates actually provide text, structure, background, style, meeting notes. You can see here that in this particular style of meetings, I have an agenda build out, action items, important dates, details, announcements. All of this is pre-built and comes with the template. Now, in the instance that you don't want structure, you just want style, you can go decorative. The decorative section will allow you to choose something that looks good, but is completely customizable. Now, in every instance here, down below, we have the ability to set a specific template as the default template, meaning every time I create a new page, it becomes the template. So let me go back to my Learnit section here. Let's say that every time I create a new page, I'd like it to have the black and green tile. So I'd like this to be the page every time I create a new page inside of my Learnit section tab. If I go down here, you'll see that it says no default template. If I click on that, I'll actually be able to select from any of the default templates I have available to me, including the black and green tile. Now, check it out what happens when I click Add Page. Boom. It gives me my black and green tile. Now, one thing you may not have noticed, but it is important to note, every time you clicked on a different template here, it created a new page. You cannot assign a template to a page that already exists. So it's really, really important to keep in mind. I'm going to go ahead and delete these pages here. Once again, even though I've deleted them, if I click Add Page, boom, black and green tile. Now it's important to note that specific templates can only be used section by section. If I go to Bugler LLC, you'll see that there is no default template. Likewise, however, let's say that I don't want black and green title as my template. I want... better yet, let's go back to Quick Notes. You guys remember in Quick Notes with On the Go? Let's say that I'd like this particular layout to be my template. I can actually set pages that I've built to be the templates. All you have to do is click Save Current Page as a template. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and name this the On the Go. And just as kind of the one fell swoop, two birds, one stone, I'm going to set this as the default template for new pages in my Quick Notes section. I click Save. And now I have a My Templates section. But I can also just click Add Page. Voila! and it creates that for me. Now, of course, keep in mind when you're creating a page as a template to remove any content that you don't want to continue appearing. In this instance, I might have wanted to create a more generic week ending. And I probably didn't want to include notes for this specific week in my template. So keep that in mind. Now, go ahead and take this opportunity, try out templates for yourself. I'm going to go ahead and delete my excessive templates here. And again, I'd like to remind you that every time you click on a template, you're creating a new page. So you can see here, there's my project overview again, meeting title, and then there are my 2 decorative styles. So I'm going to go ahead and clear those out. Go ahead and take this opportunity, try it out for yourself. Join me after the break. Welcome back. So I've taken a quick moment to build out my personal section a little bit here. You can see I've got 4 pages now. I've got quick thoughts, groceries, upcoming projects, and I've even got a parking lot for stuff that I might need to remember, just not now. In every instance, each page has its own nav bar up at the top, so I can click on groceries and get to the groceries tab. Quick thoughts takes me to the quick thoughts page. So I created those wiki links really easily. And if you'd like, feel free to pause the video and take this opportunity to build out your own personal section if you'd like. In every instance, I also created a default template. So if I added a new page here, you'll see that it still uses the decorative building style template, although I don't need another page for now. Now in the groceries section here, for personal, I might want to use this to keep tabs on what it is that I need to get from the grocery store. This can be particularly useful if, let's say, I need to pick up something from the store and my roommate says to myself, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you could get some milk? Now they could text me. Or if I already have a grocery list up and coming, I could share access to this particular page to my roommate. And because OneNote is available on all major platforms, iOS, Android, Windows Phone, Mac, PC, in all these different cases here, my roommate can download the free app with no subscription and actually just add milk to the grocery list. Now the problem is, let's say that I go ahead and I build out this grocery list here. Milk, bagels, of course, eggs, cream cheese. I really am building out my grocery list right now. I gotta go grocery shopping. But it's a list, and there's nothing feeling actionable about this. Which brings me to one of the biggest remaining subjects that we have. Tags. Tags allow us to create actionable content, searchable content, using more than just bullets or numbered lists. In this instance, I'm actually going to just delete this list outright. I'm going to place my cursor here and I'm going to insert a to-do item. Now, here in the tag section, if you click on the drop-down arrow, you'll see there are a lot of tags. There are to-do tags, important tags, questions, remember for later, highlight, this is an address, phone numbers. There's a lot to be said about all the different styles of tags. However, it's important to note beyond that, you don't have to use all of them, and you don't have to use them as they are. If you go down a little bit further, you'll see that we do have the ability to customize tags. So keep in mind that you can create your own tags later, or modify existing tags. For now, we're going to use the out-of-the-box styles of tags. I'm going to insert a to-do tag by either clicking on to-do, or, as you'll see in parentheses, using the keyboard shortcut Control-1. Control-1 will insert your to-do tag as well. I'm just going to click on it. And there it is. There is my to-do tag. So I'm going to go ahead and type milk. I'll hit the enter key and, just like a bulleted list, I can now add another to-do tag. Bagels. Cream cheese. Cereal. Now even indent them. Although it's important to note that indented to-do items are not the same as regular indents on a bulleted list. In this case, I say this is good enough, so I'm going to go ahead and back up here a little bit. And there it is. There is my grocery list. And if you'd like, you can make it bigger. All the same standard text formatting applies. And just like a real to-do list, if I check mark it, boom. So as I'm going grocery shopping here, let's say my roommate realizes, I gotta add something to this particular grocery list. And while I'm grocery shopping, my roommate can say, you know what I need? I need M&Ms. So notice my cursor's not doing anything. I'm just gonna hang tight for a moment as my roommate adds something to the list here. And there it is. M&Ms just appears because it's been added from an external source. Pretty cool. So we can use OneNote to collaborate, even though we may not necessarily be texting or calling, as long as I have access to my OneNote notebook. And in this case, my OneNote notebook is my grocery list. I can see all these changes taking place in real time. And my roommate can actually see as I'm checking these items off. Not bad. I'll go ahead and check off these 3 and I'm going to power forward here. But for now, go ahead and pause the video and create your own to-do list here inside the grocery page, if you have a grocery page already created. Now, tags can be more than just checkboxes. They can also be, in this case here, upcoming projects. So let's say that in terms of upcoming projects here, I've got to email Damon, my CEO, about the latest FAQ project. In this case here, I've got to reach out to my CEO because I've got a question about a certain thing that he's asked me to do. Likewise, as I go down below here, I'd also like to enumerate to, let's say, Conrad, another coworker of mine, schedule a meeting with Conrad. So these are both actionable things. And there's a couple of different ways that we can respond with actionable things. Of course, we still have our tags. So if I place my cursor at the beginning of email Damon about the latest FAQ project, this is a question. So I could use the question tag. It's also important. So I could use the important tag. There's no limit on how many tags you can use. Likewise, with Conrad, this is important, and it's also, let's say, related to Project A. Now, in both of these instances, it's great that I'm able to tag it, and believe me, you'll see the benefit of tags in just a little bit. But it doesn't do a lot for me outside of OneNote, except to help me find it in OneNote, which is where Outlook tasks come into play. In this example, emailing Damon about the latest FAQ project and scheduling a meeting with Conrad are both things that have to happen within a certain period of time. So as far as the Outlook tasks go, if I click on the dropdown, if you're familiar with Outlook tasks, you may recognize a couple of these. I can schedule this for today or tomorrow. I can even set a custom date. In this instance, I need to email Damon today about the FAQ project. So I'm going to click today to add the today tag. Likewise with Conrad, this is something that can wait until tomorrow. So I'm going to give it until tomorrow as the deadline for me to schedule a meeting with Conrad. So I've created 2 Outlook tag flags. But surely that doesn't mean that they've been created inside of Outlook, does it? Well, let's take a look. If I go inside of my Outlook 2016 application here, I don't see anything out of the blue, but then again, I'm not inside the task view. So let me go to my task view. Whoa, look at that. There are both of my tasks that I just flagged in OneNote. Specifically, emailing Damon about the latest FAQ project, which is due today, and schedule a meeting with Conrad. Because that can wait until tomorrow, you can see that I used the tomorrow flag and it's now due tomorrow. Pretty cool. So we can actually use tasks to assign ourselves content through Outlook. Not bad. Now, let's say that I'd like to add one more. I'll go ahead and say that in this particular instance, I would like to schedule a meeting with all the instructors. Now that's going to take a little bit of time, so maybe I'll give that one a custom or no date flag. But it is critical, so there's no due date, but I know it's urgent. So in both instances, I'm using a OneNote tag, but I'm also using an Outlook tag. In both instances, it allows me to find the content regardless of which application I'm in. If I cycle back, there it is, schedule a meeting with all the instructors with a due date of none. Go ahead and pause the video and try this out for yourself. Assign a couple of items tags, both from the tags dropdown and from the Outlook tasks dropdown. Use both and join me after the break. Welcome back. So hopefully you found a couple of tags you'd like to use, both from the Outlook tasks dropdown and from the tags menu. Keep in mind that you can always remove tags after they've been added by either deleting from the beginning of the line, although you'll notice that it deletes all the tags, or by clicking on the tags dropdown and selecting remove tag. In all instances, it does remove the tags. So what are tags and why do they matter besides just adding a little bit of visual flair? Well, tags allow us to search through notebooks to identify content quickly. You'll remember that in both instances of Email Damon and Schedule a Meeting with Conrad, I assigned an important tag. But only one of them is a question. So let's take a look. If you look up in the section tags command group here, you'll see that there's a button called Find Tags, which is very different from search. If I click on Find Tags, I'm going to get a little tags summary on the right-hand side here. And check out what it's showing me here. It's showing all of my tags in this notebook. As I scroll down here, you'll see all the way down to the bottom, there are my Outlook tags. There's my to-do list with 3 of the 5 items selected, just as you remember. If I scroll up, there's my question tag. If I was interested in just Project A information, there's my Project A tag. So I may have information that is relevant to each of these tags, but they may be scattered all over the notebook. By using a unified note-taking system that utilizes tags, I can find all the information I need in one move. Of course, if you didn't want to see the checked off items here, you could have selected Show Only Unchecked Items, and you'll see it removes 3 of the 5. Now you don't have to group by tag name. You can also group by section. Likewise, you can group by title. So there's a lot of different ways that you can come at this here. You don't even have to search just the notebook that you're currently in. You can search all notebooks. Or you could search just for today's notes. Of course, because today is pretty much everything that we've done. Everything that we're seeing is just stuff that we've already created. Let's say that I'm going to go ahead and say just this notebook. I'm going to organize by tag name. Let's say that I'd like a page, a summary page of just this content. Well, down here at the bottom, you'll see that we have the ability to click Create Summary Page and boom, there it is. So here on the summary page that's automatically been created, notice there's 5 instead of 4 now, it actually enumerates each of the tags and it specifies any items and the categories that they exist in. Now you'll see it's missing my critical tags. So let me go ahead and refresh my results. Ooh. You'll notice what happened when I refreshed my results. It doubled everything. It's really important to keep in mind that it is very challenging to find tags when there's a summary page, because the summary page uses the actual tag to indicate the tag it's referencing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete my no date page here. Likewise, I'm going to search by tag name. And I'm going to refresh my results. There we go. Much better. It's important to note that show only unchecked items will actually hide any of your critical items. So you'll notice here, critical and important for that matter. Show only unchecked items restricts your view to just time-sensitive content, so check marks and Outlook tasks. Go ahead and pause the video and try out find tags for yourself. Even go so far as to create a summary page. If you're feeling particularly daring, why don't you create your own custom tag? However you choose to spend your time, I'll see you after the break. Now that we've kind of gotten a taste of the integration that exists between OneNote and Outlook, let's look at the inverse, the integration of Outlook to OneNote. You'll see, of course, that we have an email page button, which does exactly what it sounds like it's going to do. Click on email page and it opens up Outlook, and it's actually got everything that existed inside that page already uploaded into your Outlook email. You simply have to say who you want to send it to and click send. But that's not what I want to talk about here. Instead, what I'd like to talk about, now I don't want to save, is let's say that I've got an Outlook meeting upcoming, which in fact I do. I've got a meeting coming up on Friday. So I'm going to go to my calendar view here, and I'm going to jump into April 1st. In particular, I've got an instructor lunch meeting that I'd like to look into a little bit more so. Let me go and just resize here. All right, there we go. So here I am inside of my meeting, and you'll see that it's pretty standard. I mean, it's an Outlook meeting. But at the top, there's actually been OneNote integration since the beginning. So if I click on meeting notes here, you'll see that I actually have the ability to take notes of my own. And even so far as if I were the meeting organizer, or alternatively, if the meeting organizer had created a shared OneNote notebook, I could actually select that notebook here. So with meetings, I can actually create a dedicated section for notes, either to be shared with the group or for myself. Now beyond that, let's go ahead and jump back into Outlook here, and let's take a look at an email. In this instance, here's Michael. So I've got my email from Michael, and let's say I'd like to send it to OneNote. I can do that. There's actually a move section explicitly dedicated so that I can send this email to OneNote. I click on OneNote and it'll even show me, hey, do you want to send it into the section that you're currently in? Or even the page that you're currently in? Now in this instance, I'm going to send it to personal and I'm going to click OK. And you'll see that it actually creates a page for me. So I can use this to create notes about an email that I received. Let's say that I'm building out a folio that's recording all of my project updates that I'd like to share with my project manager. I can do it all here inside OneNote. It's pretty neat in that regard. Now I can also work, let's say I'm in my parking lot here. I've got an upcoming meeting, and I'd like to have information about my upcoming meeting so I can prepare. Well, there's a lot of different bits and pieces about a meeting that's scheduled that I may want inside of my OneNote notebook. And if I can avoid it, I would love to not have to type out every little detail. Fortunately, here in the Home tab, we have Meeting Details, where I can click on Meeting Details, and if I have any meetings for today, they'll appear here. Or I can choose a meeting from another day. In this case, once again, you guys know I have a meeting on Friday, April 1st. There's my instructor lunch meeting. I'm just going to click Insert Details. And there it is. It's got the subject line from the email invitation. It's got the date. It's got the location. If I'd like an actual link to the actual Outlook item, there it is right there. I just got to click. Likewise, if I'd like to see the meeting message, there it is. Here are all the people. So if I want to take notes on individual people that I have to address a little bit later. Like Conrad. I've got to schedule a meeting with Conrad. So I'm going to flag this as critical for Project A. Remember those tags? There they are. If I don't want to see the participants, I don't have to. Of course, all of this is directly integrated with Skype for Business and Link. So if I need to send a message to, let's say, Angela, I can hover over Angela, send her an IM, call her, or even go so far as to send her an email. Not bad. The integration between Outlook and OneNote is wonderful, but it only works if you use it. So explore these options. Go ahead and check out some of the integration between Outlook and OneNote on both sides. Remember, in Outlook, we have the ability to send entire email chains, or meetings for that matter, directly to OneNote. Go ahead and try it out, and we'll see you after the break. Once I've got these meeting notes in place, really, the sky's the limit in terms of what you choose to do with these notes. But let's say that you'd like to build on what happens at the meeting. Fortunately, when you insert meeting details, you get a notes section. Let's say that you would like to insert audio, not just of yourself, but of the meeting. You're only so fast when it comes to taking notes. Why not record the meeting for later reference? You can record it using video or audio. Keep in mind, you're going to need to set these sources ahead of time, and I'll show you where to do that. In this case, I'd like to record audio of the meeting, so I'm simply going to go to the Insert tab and click Record Audio. By clicking on Record Audio, you'll see it actually takes you into a new section tab, Audio and Video. It's actually recording everything here. You can see here by the increasing digits. Now, when you want to stop recording, or if you'd like to switch over to recording video, you can use one of these buttons up at the top. Now, it's important to note that when it starts recording, it's using your default recording tools. So if you'd like to change that, you're going to need to go to Audio and Video Settings. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording here. If I'd like to play it back, I simply select it, and either click Play here in the quick pop-up, or Play here up in the ribbon. On Record Audio, you'll see it actually takes you into a new section tab. And there Audio it is. And video. I hate my voice. But it's important to note that, once again, if it's recording from the wrong source, you're going to need to go into Audio and Video Settings. Interestingly, Audio and Video Settings is where the most powerful feature of audio and video recording lives. It's off by default. But check out this check mark here. You have the ability to enable searching audio and video recording for words. Just like you were able to convert screenshots into text, so too can you transcribe voice to text and make it searchable. Now keep in mind again, it's off by default and it does take time to transcribe. For every minute of recording, prescribe at least 30 minutes of transcription time. It's a really solid rule, and I recommend holding on to that. So it'll take about 30 minutes for the 30 seconds or so, or maybe 15, in order to become fully searchable. And even then, voice to text is not perfect, but it does allow you to offload some of the work, making OneNote, again, that one-stop shop for everything. Go ahead and try it out for yourself. Record audio, or, if you're feeling adventurous, insert a video. Try it out for yourself, and we'll see you after the break. So your notebook is complete, at least as complete as it can be for now. Let's say you do take these meeting notes, and everybody loves you for it. So much so that they'd like their own copy of your meeting notes. Well, these meeting notes can be shared through OneNote, and we saw that using share or export. Although, I would be remiss not to make mention of the fact that you can print your OneNote notebook. If you go to print preview, it's simply going to print whatever the current page you're on is. It is by far the most limited way to share your OneNote notebook, although occasionally it does come in handy. So please do keep in mind that while you do have that flexibility, using export and share allow you a little bit more control. Even going to send allows you to do pretty much anything that you would have wanted to do. And that brings us to the end of our scheduled content. I'd like to thank all of you who survived the last 2 hours or so, and I encourage you, don't let this be the end of your exploration of OneNote. OneNote is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's only as powerful as you are creative. So take the tools that you've learned here today and apply them. Find creative ways to take the things that I've shown you and make them yours. There's no right or wrong way to use OneNote. I hope you've enjoyed this session,